It's time for Stages of Life Radio with Dr. David Klein. Have a medical question? Call 407-422-1212. That's 407-422-1212 or text 23680.
I feel like she was kind of yelling at us again.
Oh.
Always. Why? Why do we always get yelled at?
You would think it was a recording.
Hey guys, welcome to Stages of Life Radio. Melissa Fox, but the man with the plan, the most important of all, is that guy right there, Dr. David Klein. Hi everybody, we're also broadcasting live on social media. Look for Stages of Life Medical Institute, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, you name it. Is that a platform now? You name it?
I don't know, could be.
Yeah, it might be.
We'll call Trump up, suggested.
Oh man. I have here a flag from the January 6th. Let's all pledge allegiance. Oh,
yeah, this flew over the Capitol on January 6th.
Everyone pledge allegiance. Okay. Wow. I love Minions. They're so much fun to direct. All right, so let's talk about pain. Great segue, right? Dr. Klein is always accepting new patients, by the way. Let's explain this, because you have several board certifications in pain management.
Three
actually.
Of them. Yeah, I've been doing pain management work for, I guess, 40 years.
Wow.
So long enough to at least have enough data to render an opinion. For right or wrong, I have opinions, and I'll share them with you, and I expect you to go along with me.
Let's keep up.
But very basically, I've been doing pain work, in addition to a bunch of other things for quite some time. Opened up an office-based pain center at a time when they were extraordinarily unusual. The other pain centers in the United States were at the universities, 50 of them. 50 states, 50 universities. What do you know about that? And so I went ahead and opened one up in private practice, and I was told that I was crazy. They may have been correct, but it was successful. So why? Okay, why is this important? And the answer is very simple. What is pain in general? We could start with Descartes and define what it is, an unpleasant sensory perception, ... What it is. Pain is what it is. People experience it differently. It doesn't make a great deal of sense to put together a multiple choice question as to what pain truly is, because it would be like having two people trying to decide who is correct about their perception of the color red. The way it goes. Everybody experiences it, but it's a difficult thing to measure, hormonally or any other way. But approximately 40% of the adults in the United States will experience pain of a chronic nature, whether it's headache, which is the most common of all chronic pain problems, backache, which is number 2, or it could be any one of a bunch of other causes. But nevertheless, chronic pain is a very real problem. And why do we care about it? Why should we care about it? What could we do about it? And these are the sorts of things that we're going to talk about.
All right.
So there are a few things that are kind of interesting. Chronic pain itself, oddly enough, is more common as you have less and less education. And I'm not really sure why this is the case. But when you're looking at chronic pain patients, it's much more common to find a treated pain patient with less education than somebody with more. And in my experience, that's exactly correct. The more educated the folks are, the less intervention you typically see of a pain nature. It seems to be more common as you climb down the economic ladder. So you'll see it more in individuals that don't have economic resources behind them. It's also more common in patients with subsidized health care, which also is kind of interesting. So those of you that find themselves having to, let's say, punch the clock and be out there are going to be less likely to take time off to be dealing with pain problems or even seeing the doctor or getting treated for it. And that's also very, very true. So the cost of pain, and this is sort of an interesting problem. When the government or anybody else, especially Hopkins, starts looking at these things economically, it starts slapping numbers on them, you can be assured that there's a political motivation behind it. And this is always the case. Somebody is going to get funding for this. So it's estimated that chronic pain hits society, hits everybody, for about $635 billion per year or more. And these estimates are really kind of wild. What they call them wags. These are guesses. They look at it and they figure, well, how much is time off worth? And then they average it across the population, knowing full well that most of the people that are taking the time off are not at the upper end of the scale, but they'll kind of fudge that into it. They'll start throwing numbers out like, well, what's the value of not spending time with your kids? Let's throw another $100 billion on that. And so they start throwing these numbers around, but it's not something that has a tremendous amount of concrete numbers behind it. But let's just say that it's a lot. Okay. So there are a number of people, lots of people, for instance, that will lose time from work due to migraine. Interesting problem, migraine. There are lots of things you can do to treat migraine, but then, these interventions may have some cost attached to it. One of the advertisements that you're going to see out there is the use of Botox to treat migraine.
Saw that.
Oh, yeah. Well, talk to your doctor. Every 90 days, they can do $1,000 or $2,000 migraine injection using Botox. And all this really does is paralyze the muscles around your neck and face and makes it a little bit harder for you to look overhead. But it does, in fact, help the headache somewhat. Okay, but is it worth $4,000 a year to do that? That's a question you have to ask. They don't like using barbiturates anymore. Okay, why? Because they tend to be addictive on their own, and they can cause rebound headaches. The triptans can cause heart issues. There's a bunch of drugs that just came out called CGRPs, which we use a lot of at Stages. At Stages of Life, we will use CGRPs to treat migraine, and the problem is nobody wants to pay for them because they can be very expensive. So, how expensive could they possibly be? And the answer is between $600 and $800 a month or more. So that's 10 G's a year. Now, if you're paying, let's just say $140 a month for a Medicare, a pharmacy prescription plan, or let's just say that you're paying $350 a month for a Blue Cross Blue Shield plan, what do you think the likelihood is that they're going to approve an $850 injection and still have to cover you for the rest of the stuff? So there's some ways that the pharmaceutical companies get their medications used. And once they're used, they can then start lobbying later on to the insurance companies to cover them, perhaps at a lower cost, but just the same. So, you'll get these coupons. Oh, you only have to pay $5 a month for the next 2 years. And that might be true or it might not be true, depending upon your insurance coverage, whether you have insurance coverage or not. If you don't, you may be left out of this one. If you have Medicare, you may be left out of this one. And so it also may only cover you to a point. So let's say something's $800 a month, like my wife's Aimovig. And so after 8 months, actually 7 months, they stop covering it. So for the remaining 5 months of the year, it's $875 a month. That doesn't sound like a lot of money to most people, right? It's $4,000. Okay, so a lot of folks don't get treated. Now, they did just fine, apparently, before the introduction of these medications, you would think. The triptans used to be very, very expensive. They're now, many of them have gone generic. So there are ways to get treated for migraine. It just takes a little bit more aggravation to do it. So convenience comes at a price. So what are the causes of chronic pain? This is kind of an important question.
Yeah, it is.
I have terrible, terrible pain all the time. My whole body hurts. When somebody comes in with total body pain, I tend to worry about it because this generally means that they've got something toxic going on, which usually comes in a pharmaceutical bottle or in a little bag that they bought at the corner outside the drugstore, not inside. And so what are the common causes of pain? One of the funniest ones is as we get older, we see more and more pain of just an ordinary nature. But poor posture will cause pain, chronic pain due to poor posture. Did your mom ever say, sit up straight, sit up straight? Turns out that the old lady was right.
Yep.
She had it figured out. Keep your shoulders back and you're going to do better. You don't slump, slouch, whatever, and then the arthritis that you're going to get in your back becomes less. That happens later in life, let's just say. Heavy labor has a cost attached to it. So heavy labor can be from your work. And it can come from some other odds and ends that we're going to talk about after these important announcements.
Very important announcements, yes. We are sponsored in part by Pharmacy Specialists, a compounding pharmacy right around the corner in Maitland, Florida. Check out makerx.com. Doc has worked with them for many decades, they are good people.
You can trust them, and the quality is above reproach.
Yeah, it is. All right, we'll be right back. This is Stages of Life Radio on News Radio WFLA Orlando. Hey, the button worked.
That time.
It was just fun. I had to actually switch out and come back. We've got a lot of people watching us on Facebook and on the various social media platforms, but no one has a question. Apparently, you're just stunning them.
Well, this is not a bad thing. Okay, so what it is they're waiting to see what I have to say about this, because this is the setup. What I'm doing is I'm going ahead and building the background.
The suspense.
Then we start getting into what you can do about it, and there's probably a minority of people actually that are listening in right now that can't relate to having chronic pain of one nature or another.
Iggy wants to know if your magic minerals are back in stock.
No, actually, Iggy, good question. They're supposed to be back any day now. Okay, I want you to understand how
a shipping carrier, some container somewhere.
Yeah, so my manufacturers are having a hard time getting some of the components. They come from all over the darn place before they're even tested. So, Iggy, what we're using is the Down to Basics, which we have in stock. And while it's true there's not quite enough of the magnesium in them, we can cobble something together in the meantime. But you're right. I'm a little bit disappointed by it because we ordered for manufacture about 4.5 months ago. So it's not.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I would not have ever thought that this country would be brought to its knees by such an insane chief executive. I mean, this is just stupid.
Yeah.
Even when we got blindsided by COVID, there wasn't this type of problem. Yeah, we couldn't get hand sanitizer, but you didn't pay double for your gasoline.
No.
You didn't pay double for your meat, your fish, your chicken, your vegetables.
Too.
Yeah, I was just outside. The price of gasoline here in Florida has just about doubled in the past 10 months. But that's a tax on the rich. Just want you to know that, according to the president.
It's a luxury tax,
yeah, it's a luxury to be able to buy gasoline.
Can't get your treadmill?
Oh,
that
man.
woman, I want to peppermint pie.
Go play it against sports. You
First
can buy them all day long.
First world problems. Can't get your treadmill delivered. Really nice comeback.
Yeah, go to Play It Against Sports. You can buy as many treadmills as you want. Yeah, people use them for about a week, and then they sell them as paperweights.
Yeah, right. Ian said glucosamine sulfate, fish oil, and MSM have changed my life. Thank you, Dr. Klein.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear that. So there are a couple other things we're going to talk about once we go back on air.
Soon.
So, Ian, we will be chatting about that in a moment.
We are a radio station and pay appropriate licensing fees to play these musical interludes that get us in and out of breaks. So
supporting those individuals, those musicians,
them,
artists,
so
some of them.
We understand and get it, man. So don't do that. You know what I'm talking about, Facebook. You know what I'm talking about. We've silenced this portion.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Just do it. All right, here we go. Welcome back. Stages of Life Radio every Sunday afternoon, 4 to 5 p.m. live and in your face with information that you really need.
There we
it's
go.
True. Got Dr. David Klein. We're talking about pain right now. What is pain? It's different to everybody. It really is.
Yeah, it's essentially it's an unhealthy discomfort.
Yes.
Okay, sometimes very severe.
It can
And
be.
you can give us a numerical value from 0 to 10. 0 being no pain, and 10 being you want to jump off a bridge. Well, you know something?
When did that pain chart come around?
The visual analog scale. It came around the 1970s.
Mm-hmm. But it was really put into play by Purdue.
Yes. The little smiley face ones. It was
The
interesting.
smiley face ones, which lead right back to OxyContin addiction.
Yeah.
So let's talk about pain.
Yeah, let's just we'll talk about Purdue Frederick later.
Let's talk about those
Okay,
guys later.
so
yeah.
what causes it in most individuals? Poor posture will lead up to a lot of different problems, to include muscle tension, headache, to include rotator cuff tear, but it'll tear into your hips, your knees, your feet, and the whole routine. So poor posture over the course of years is bad news. Heavy labor, that makes sense. You're going to start to wear out, but heavy labor can also be avocational. If you're a long-distance runner, believe me, every time you pound the pavement, you're doing a little bit more damage to your feet, your ankles, your back, and your hips. So obesity is the one that is my favorite. So two-thirds of our entire population is overweight. Think about that for a second. So every time you take a step, not just your full body weight, but actually it's a multiple of that because of what's called the moment arm, which is a matter of physics, leverage. goes across the hips. So having hip arthritis is becoming increasingly common at much and much younger ages. Poor sleep environment. This is one that seems to get about 40% of the population. Having a mattress that's inappropriately small, inappropriately short, or too hard or too soft, typically too soft. This will lead to additional lack of just not being able to sleep properly, leads to arthritis as well as diabetes, increasing weight and whatnot. Age. The older you get, the more likely you're going to get this sort of thing. Chronic diseases all tend to have pain attached to it, whether it's headache, abdominal pain, chest pain, muscular pain. Very, very common in just about every autoimmune disease that there is. Chronic diseases like diabetes as well. Cancer, we all understand how that's going to operate. And the most interesting one of all is diet. Diet will make and break a pain patient. And this is one of the hardest things to treat. Why? Because so many of the people that I treat for pain are of a lower socioeconomic status, lower educational status, and they don't really understand or believe that there's a relationship between what you eat and how you feel. And that's a hard thing to work with. It's just a lack of trust due to a lack of education or whatever the experiences are in their life. They don't want to hear somebody tell them that a bag of potato chips is going to make you hurt, or those Twizzlers that you're going to get at Halloween are going to make you feel like hell, make your arthritis work, make everything work. I don't know. I like that. I don't know. I should be entitled to my pleasures in life. Six-pack of Coca-Cola is always a good one. Lord. So in order to intervene, and we're going to get into some specifics here shortly. We have some people on the line that are interested in this for whatever reason. Number one, you need to identify a goal. This is important. Okay, being pain-free is never achievable. It's kind of like if were you to pour ink onto a carpet, you know you're not going to get it all out. You have to make it decide how much is sufficient, because if you keep rubbing and keep using chemicals, you are going to have a hole in the carpet. Yeah. So it is with pain management. Oh. If you keep chunking it until somebody comes in and says, I still have some discomfort, they're the ones that die. Okay, because what's keeping people alive is having some of that pain in order to keep them breathing. As soon as that pain is entirely gone, these people have a risk of dying. Oh. That is a big deal. Okay, losing patients due to medication, overuse, intentional or let's just say unanticipated, is a disaster. Nobody likes to have that. The goals need to be realistic. So what's realistic? It means returning to work, finding some manner of getting back to life, because sitting around waiting for the next pain pill is not any way to spend your life. You can't really drive with them, and you really can't drive without them, so you need to figure out a way to function. The goals need to be affordable. What possible good is it for me to find a cure, a treatment for somebody's pain condition if they're not able to get it, either because of monetary reasons or availability? Right now, with the supply chain issues, these things are still made in the United States. Once they get cheap, they'll go to India, and then we're all done. Okay, so watch and wait and see what happens. So we need to pick and choose how we do this. So affordable choices have to be made first. Number one is lifestyle change. And again, it gets back to education and money, basically. So what are your lifestyle change? Instead of eating fast foods and junk, which is going to make you fat, jack up your insulin level and your blood sugar, you have to start eating properly. It means fresh fruits, vegetables, and other sorts of meats and fish, chicken, and whatnot. Protein. Do they cost more than going out to fast food? And the answer is no.
No,
they do not. Right. They cost less. And if somebody says, "Hey, look, going out and buying, meat at $5 a pound or $7 a pound, that's cheaper than getting a hamburger," you are crazy. Because I'll tell you what, McDonald's has to buy their meat too. It's not given to them. All right. So in order for you to understand economically, what does it cost for somebody to take that food and make a hot meal for you? Package it, pay somebody to hand it to you, clean up after you. And if you think that that's cheaper than you doing that work yourself, you would be incorrect. Losing weight. You lose weight, pain levels decrease. Why? Because the mechanical load on the feet, knees, hips, neck, back, shoulders, and whatnot decrease. Wouldn't you know it? Also, look at your mattress. Look at your bed. Figure out why you're not sleeping. If it's the person beside you, then you might have to fix that. Sure. Okay, that's all part and parcel of this. If somebody's snoring, if somebody's kicking. I had a patient one time who kicked and broke his wife's ribs. Okay, and he had a problem.
Interesting sleeping position.
Well, he had let's say a movement disorder. He had restless leg syndrome, but it really wasn't.
Yeah, I bet too, but I've never kicked anybody
No,
that hard out of the bed.
He did and broken. I mean, that's the way it went.
Oh.
So you also have to change your diet, and this all requires some level of motivation. If you've got an unmotivated individual, then you're really doomed to mediocrity or doomed to failure. So medication management, terribly important. So what's the most important? What is the most important pain medicine, pain approach? So let's say that you're a roofer and you've got a nail gun. Don't with these nail guns. Awesome, man. I wanted to try to play with one of these one time. They wouldn't let me do it.
It's probably a good idea
That's
because
what
you're dangerous.
What they said was, Doc, you're clumsy. I thought, okay, but it did look like fun. Now, let's say that somebody did something wrong and they caught a nail in the thigh, right? Poof. Okay, now that has got to feel bad, right?
Ouch.
What's the most effective pain medication you can give them?
Aspirin.
No, a pair of pliers to pull out the nail.
Yep.
So when you remove the pain stimulus, that's far more impressive with regards to what you can do for a person, a patient, child, whatever, than it is to give them some tablet, some liquid, some patch. So figure out what's wrong and then intervene appropriately. So one of my most favorite medications recently is hydroxychloroquine. So somebody has a written text.
Yeah, I think they're testing you.
Why are pharmacists refusing to fill prescriptions for ivermectin and hydrochloroquine? Well, I'll tell you what. If you call the hydrochloroquine Plaquenil, which is used to treat autoimmune disorders because it's an anti-inflammatory,
your money, baby.
It gets filled.
They don't even care.
Wouldn't you know it? Because they're very smart, these pharmacists. So medication management needs to reflect what's going on. So if you've got somebody with migraine, you can treat chronic migraine by using anti-inflammatories, anticonvulsants, and they don't need to be Topamax and whatnot. They can be baclofen. They can be other sorts of things that don't make you stupid, as well as the CGRPs and the triptans. And the joke is that it's a complicated chemical mix. It's a cascade. There are 150 modulators and mediators of inflammation. 150. CGRP is just the most recently identified one. So you need to understand that the intervention is going to be using polypharmacy. Now, poly is not the person's name. It just simply means using more than one medication, multiple medications. Mm-hmm. Injections are also very interesting, but they come at a cost also. And it's not just paying the doc for the injection.
Yeah.
So when you go ahead and you pop some steroid into somebody's back, well, we're going to do 3 epidurals, and then the orthopedic surgeon gets to operate on you. What does that tell you? It tells you that they don't expect it to work. I've done over 15,000 epidurals. I stopped doing them because they don't work. Okay, I put my kid through college on epidurals. You don't do epidurals because they don't work, but in very, very narrow circumstances. And spinal stenosis is not one of them. It works very narrowly. But one thing it always does is it shuts the adrenals down. So when you do epidural after epidural, boom, 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 the adrenals go to hell. And then wouldn't you know it, the body's secretion of cortisol, the natural anti-inflammatory, drops. It drops hard, drops like a rock. Surgery should be the least thing on your mind. Why? The typical outcomes of spinal surgery, it's back surgery, neck surgery, is 33, 33. 1/3 get some relief, 1/3 get about the same, and 1/3 get worse. That is terrible odds.
Yeah, that's not good.
So if you're having no problems with bladder or bowel and you can walk, best avoided.
All right, we're going to take a quick break here, check your traffic and weather and bottom of the hour. That's bottom of the hour news.
Yes,
like
and then we're going to talk about the specifics of things I'd like you to try.
And then we'll open up the phone lines. Of course, the text line's already open, 23680 if you want to comment or ask a question. This is Stages of Life Radio with Dr. David Klein from Stages of Life Medical Institute on News Radio WFLA, Orlando. Yeah. I thought it was going to start on its own, but it did not. It scared me for a second because it did some sort of
Well, you had your finger ready. You're good. It's like that 6-second dump that you always have for me.
Yeah,
in case I say the bad
that's
words on the
over
list.
Here. Delete.
The bad words on the list.
You do not. You've been good about that lately.
Well, it's like anything. With a little bit of practice, even I can avoid those words.
Avoid the bad
as much as I want to say them.
I know, right? They are so much fun.
Yeah, really what they do is they get the job done with the fewest number of syllables.
Yeah,
there is that. They're
there
efficient.
Is that.
Efficiency.
I have a whole week of Simon this week.
Oh, no. Speaking of 4-letter expletives. Wow. Okay, that should be good for a few laughs. Just make sure you have plenty of mama's medicine in charge. I mean, he seems like a nice enough fellow, but he has his moments, doesn't he?
Yeah, they all do.
Let's talk about, we've got one text here which is going to be fairly interesting.
Which one?
Okay, number one on the list here. Okay, this person called in or sent in. I have heard that pharmacists are refusing to fill prescriptions for ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. Have I experienced this? And the answer is I'm a little bit too affirmative, which sometimes people will call me an SOB, to be able to accept somebody not filling a prescription because I write lots and lots of prescriptions. And when you tell them that if you don't do this, I'm going to move all of my medicines to a competing pharmacy, which, by the way, conveniently is right across the street. Yeah. So you'll see their parking lot fill up as yours diminishes. Is that really what you're telling me you're going to do?
Which do you prefer?
So then they fill them. But ivermectin really isn't all that useful for the treatment. It doesn't prevent COVID. It doesn't do much of anything except keep you amused. Hydroxychloroquine, on the other hand, I have not only written that prescription a bunch of times, but I've taken the medication for having had COVID. It takes 30 minutes for that stuff to work. You feel like death. You take the medication. 30 minutes later, all of a sudden, you are singing. It lasts about 10 to 12 hours.
Yeah. What about?
And then, boom, you have to take it again.
What's this
so my
Regeneron?
lovely wife is going, she's going, well, it doesn't make you feel like singing. But I'll tell you what, when we ran out of it, okay, she panicked, and I had to go dodging to Publix. God bless Publix. And they threw a bottle in through the back window because they didn't want me coming in and let's just say sharing my experience with an infectious disease with the rest of their customers and staff.
Oh,
so they were good about that.
Yeah.
So your question was what? You brought something up and then
wait, hold on.
I talked right past
That's
you.
okay. We have 1 minute, but Linda is online saying I got a question off topic. Last lab test showed MPV at 9.5. What is MPV? Also, microalbumin was too low to calculate. Is that a bad thing?
No. Just relax. We'll talk. That's the sort of thing, Linda, that we will talk about when we have a little bit more time.
Okay, but don't panic.
But no, and so this is also a demonstration for why looking at the lab results doesn't get you very much between office visits because those little H's and L's you can't interpret.
You don't
them.
know what it means.
You don't know what the heck they mean.
They don't scare you.
No.
And they do give the ranges. At least
Even
that
still,
keeps me tame a little. But yeah,
it shouldn't make any difference at all. It's like getting a notice from your bank that you have too much money in your checking account.
Yeah, they're not going to do that.
The little H.
You're all right there.
High balance.
You're okay. It's going to be okay.
You'll live. Love you, Lindeval.
Welcome back. It's Stages of Life Radio. We do this Sunday starting at 4, which means you're late. You've missed the first half of the dang show.
You're late. You can pick it up on the weblog.
Yeah, you can find it on the iHeartMedia podcast. You can go to stagesofliferadio.com and hear Doc Talk 24 hours a day as well.
Drives me crazy, too.
Dr. David Klein is in, and we are talking about pain and what it is and why you actually need it.
Yeah.
What else you got?
So the next piece of this puzzle,
Ooh.
the thing that you're waiting for, and there's going to be two pieces to this.
The piece of the puzzle.
One of which is going to be prescription medication and the approach that you take to treating pain. My approach, and you can go to a bunch of different people, and you'll probably get a lesser, you'll get fewer choices, and then you start looking at things you can do naturally. So we have one of our listeners who sent in a little note mentioning kind of sort of what he is taking, and we'll talk about those things. But as a general rule, you have to treat the underlying cause of the pain in order to get the pain under control.
Yes.
So if you have migraine, one of the things you have to deal with is the trigeminal neuralgia, which is associated with the migraine. So you're going to have to take things that will influence the way that trigeminal nerve works. They call these things muscle relaxants, sometimes known as anticonvulsants. Some work at the level of the neuromuscular junction, right at the very end. Some work in the muscle itself, and some work at the level of the spinal cord. It depends upon individual needs. So your doctor, your assistant, your help, your protagonist, that person that you go to see and don't trust, that individual is the one that has to help you make the right selection. And with training and with a little bit of experience or a lot of experience, there are many choices that you can make. But they almost always involve using more than one medication. So when you're looking at trigeminal neuralgia, we're going to use an anticonvulsant. My personal favorite is called baclofen, which is a GABA A agonist. The stuff is marvelous. It'll facilitate sleep. It's a muscle relaxant, anticonvulsant, and it will give you analgesia by settling down the nerve. Of the other 150 modulators of inflammation, which ones do you want to work with? Cyclooxygenase would be number 2. You'll know these things as the sorts of pain and inflammation that are influenced by the likes of naproxen. Very important. I prefer naproxen to treat headache and facial pain because it's one of the few that cross the blood-brain barrier. So when you give a medication that doesn't get to the target, all you get is side effects. Think about that for a second, okay? So you can take the right medicine, which might work in a Petri dish, but it may not work in vivo because it doesn't get to where it needs to go. So baclofen, anti-inflammatory choice, depends upon what the tissue is. So for sacroiliac joint, meloxicam. If it's looking at things like the ureter, I'll use Toradol. They hit different tissues differently. So ketorolac, when somebody has a kidney stone, you just want to kiss the person that gave it to you because the most miserable pain in the world goes away in minutes after you receive it. It's better than any narcotic that's ever been invented for that purpose because it's that pair of pliers that just pulled the nail out of your thigh. You give that person IV Toradol. Okay, and I was one of the first people in the world to ever do this for kidney stones back in 1990. And it's remarkable how this goes. Story. I was recalled to the National Naval Medical Center, NNMC, now known as Walter Reed. Used to be the Naval Hospital Bethesda, for Gulf War. And they didn't have any IV. They didn't have any Toradol. They had none. Okay, why? Because all of the injectors went for purposes of biological warfare.
Oh.
Okay, so I bought up what I could. That's just the way I did these things. So I bought several thousand of these injectors, put them in a bag, and took them with me to Bethesda. So when people were having problems, I just dug into the ones I paid for and gave it to the sailors. I mean, why not? So I got a lot of experience with continuous infusion Toradol because I had to make sure that this stuff lasted long enough to go through the war. And I did. I did manage to do it. So other sorts of things that are helpful for pain. Things that facilitate sleep. Believe it or not, if you can get a good night's rest, you can handle just about anything. So in this way, melatonin, L-theanine, GABA, that's GABA-aminobutyric acid, these are all pain medications, not analgesics, but they're useful in the treatment of pain. Cortisol. Now, if you're one of these individuals that's received multiple nerve blocks, I can promise you that you've been loaded with steroids. Your cortisol level is going to be too low, which means that your body's natural anti-inflammatory system is shot. So taking some steroid by mouth, not prednisone, no, not a Medrol dose pack. Stuff is garbage. It will shut your adrenals down, but simple Cortef, which is one of the hormones your body uses to make cortisol. And then, wouldn't you know it, things tend to even out. What do you do for folks that have pain of vertebral origin? So let's say they have some osteoporosis, osteopenia. Let's just say they have compression fractures of the back. If you harden the bone, it doesn't continue to break. If it doesn't continue to break, the pain goes away in about 6 weeks. So vitamin D3, vitamin K2, and something magical called strontium will harden the bone. And wouldn't you know it, the pain level decreases. Does it go away entirely? No, but it gets you back to work. So these are the sorts of things that you need to look at for every sort of discomfort that you might be having. Rotator cuff tear, rotator cuff pain, extraordinarily common. Sometimes surgery is helpful, but more times than not, topical anti-inflammatories will make the difference. So you take things by mouth, which we're going to get into in a moment. Topically, you can use Pennsaid, which is expensive. You can use Voltaren 1%. You can use the 3% generic, and it works beautifully, especially if you combine it with the use of Kinkies, which is MSM topical. Settles the shoulders down. Does it make the rotator cuff mend again? The answer is no. Most people throughout human history, when they were born, they got injured and they died with intact rotator cuffs and just did fine with it. I have a rotator cuff on the left side from playing rugby for it was Baltimore City against Philadelphia, semi-pro, and I got my shoulder whacked hard. I was 21 years old. That was a long time ago. So for the longest time, my shoulder hurt until I thought about, why don't I treat myself as I treat my patients? Now I can throw a ball overhead and I feel pretty darn good about it without a surgical scar involved. So simple arthritis is not simple.
No.
There's no simple explanation for this. So the different tissues need different types of anti-inflammatories. The first anti-inflammatory modulator that was discovered was histamine. So for sinuses, antihistamines are helpful for the inflammation, but they don't help with the underlying issue. So temporary use is appropriate, long-term use may not be. So what can you take off a nutraceutical basis? We're going to talk about all the stuff that you need my help or a doctor's help for. Well, that's marvelous, very self-serving. But what can you do to make yourself better, feel better, get back into business, get back into life? First things. Okay, we're going to avoid discussing weight loss. You already know how to do that. Everybody knows how to lose weight. Everybody knows how to bring their insulin and blood sugar down. What you don't know how to do necessarily is how do you restore the lubricating fluid to the joints. Now, this is important. So write this down. Okay, it's called high molecular weight hyaluronic acid. What is this? This is nature's lubricant. This stuff is really cool stuff. It works beautifully for horses, by the way. It works marvelously for dogs and cats, and it'll work for you too. So how do you do this? Get it in a liquid form. The one I prefer is called Lubricin. Why? You take a tablespoon of this stuff in your breakfast, whatever it happens to be. It could be scrambled eggs. It could be toast. It could be on the end of the spoon, you suck it down. It's a little bit sweet, but it's not...
Same for your dogs, about a tablespoon in their dry food.
And they love it. Okay, they love it. And after 6 to 8 weeks, you start seeing a change in the way they move and carry on. Mm-hmm. Second thing, oral medication called MSM, which stands for methylsulfonylmethane. Methylsulfonylmethane is a marvelous anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, vasodilator, but your body uses the sulfur moieties for cartilage repair. The dosage is 1 gram twice a day. There's a back order on that right now, believe it or not.
I do.
We start talking about MSM, and then boom, because they hear us all over the country, and then the stuff gets eaten right off the shelves. Third thing, glucosamine sulfate. Your body uses glucosamine sulfate, again, for cartilage repair. So you take 750 milligrams or thereabouts twice daily. A good high quality, not garbage and certainly not krill oil, which is just expensive garbage, but a good quality fish oil that gives your body something called EPA, which is an anti-inflammatory that gets converted into certain other anti-inflammatory hormones. So these are sort of the ways that we deal with these problems. Acutely, we will talk about bromelain when we get back.
Okay. We also have someone on the line here hanging on for a minute. Okay. Let's talk about something. We got a couple of questions on the text line, too. 23680 if you want to pop your question through the old iPhone or the Samsung, Android, whatever.
I've got my iPhone right here.
I've got mine as well. But no shaming you, regardless.
Oh, and don't talk in front of the children or Alexa, because she is listening.
She is listening.
She's listening to you.
It's true. We got one more segment left. You're listening to Stages of Life Radio on News Radio WFLA Orlando. It's a true story. All right, what do we have? I'm going to make sure I'm all set here. By 1 second.
Some really good questions. Some statements, but some good questions as well.
Statements, questions. There was one here
we'll deal with all of them. Yeah.
From earlier that caught my eye. What is the wrong side of science?
Okay, which is an interesting question. It's like asking what's the wrong side of religion. Science, in many ways, is a lot like religion. The difference is the level of proof. With religion, you just have to believe because you want to. With science, the data can be interpreted a bunch of different ways. So when you're looking at a properly done study that gives you some piece of information, the first thing that you do want to do as a clinician or as a scientist, okay, and I've been published over 100 times, one of the things you want to do is to ask for somebody to reproduce the study.
Right.
If it's reproducible, it's real. So if you see that one person sends a note out, a letter to the editor, okay, those are marvelous, or case reports. These are useless in terms of medical science. They're helpful to hear what people are saying, but they're not very valuable in making decisions. So the wrong side of science is also sometimes defined by who pays for it. So if you've got research that's being paid by some particular
the company
entity,
that's going to benefit. Yeah.
it's very likely that you're going to get a twist to that side.
Yeah.
So the wrong side of science is usually the one that doesn't persist because data speaks, but the science will come back.
Yeah, so this guy says the science can be right, but how you enforce the science
You don't
can
enforce
be wrong.
science. That's just it. You
Yeah.
don't enforce science. That's the difference between a totalitarian state and the free-for-all in academia. So, you know, the fact that you have people that disagree is such a marvel.
Oh, my
You know, if
gosh.
everybody agreed in Congress, we would have a $5 trillion
Be a hot mess,
taxable
wouldn't it?
mess right now. No, disagreement is extraordinarily helpful. Having strong and healthy debate. Name calling, not so much. So looking to save humanity? No, you're not looking to save humanity. What you're looking to do is to make people live happier and healthier, to make things more productive. When you're talking about charged items like paying people to kill their unborn babies, nobody wants to hear that. You can believe the way you want to believe. I'll believe the way I want to believe. I'm not going to tell you the way I believe because it's not important that I do so. But the fact of the matter is that in a free country, we have the freedom to choose.
Just in the same breath, this kind of texter will also write that God doesn't make mistakes, and it's so confusing.
Well, then how
It's
are you?
like-
It's just like
Are we on the wrong side of what here?
I don't know.
I mean, I'm just going to say that from experience, those kind of textures, they're like,
Oh, I got it.
The science is real, but pray.
No, science is real if you agree with it.
Yeah.
No, science is science. I've been proven wrong many
Everything
times.
is up to interpretation.
That's the beauty of it.
Welcome back to the beautiful show called Stages of Life Radio on News Radio WFLA Orlando. I am Melissa Fox from various radio shows. I feel like that guy. I feel like the guy in The Simpsons. You remember that?
Which one?
You know the one from. You may remember me from such shows as. Come on, it's
It's
the guy who got killed by.
Oh yes.
Yeah,
Yes. Okay.
I just didn't want to say it anymore. Anyway, what do we got here? Nighttime Charlie horses. Oh, I get nightly, drink a lot of water, take potassium. All right, we got some questions. We got a guy on the line here. We got to wrap up your pain soliloquy.
There we go. Okay. So in summary, with regards to the treatment of pain. Which is something that I'm particularly skilled at, and I'm also experienced with it.
And not humble bragging.
No,
at
not
all.
at all. I'm very comfortable with myself.
Apparently.
However,
Take yourself out to dinner later.
Well,
Yes.
I have. It just I do that,
And a
and
show.
then Tess gets all annoyed at me.
Yeah.
Where were you? I went out to dinner
Went to
without
dinner.
me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wasn't enough room in the car.
There we go. Well, the first thing you need to know is that any intervention, causes secondary problems. And each and every time that you do it, it carries secondary problems. So why do I want to say this? Well, what are the side effects? What are the untoward reactions that happen as a result of surgery? Any surgical intervention, from the insertion of an IUD or something similar. It could be a shoulder or a hip or a knee prosthesis. It could be a staple, screw, or bolt holding something together. It may be a pacemaker. It could be an intraocular lens. Each and every one of these devices owes its existence to previous items that are no longer available because there may have been problems with them. Think about that for a second. All right. So each generation of these things, it gets a little bit better. If it were so perfect the first time around, the things wouldn't be getting better. But that doesn't mean you don't want to go ahead and jump on board. Just because a train has a chance of wrecking doesn't mean you don't take that train trip or take that plane trip or go to the restaurant because you might get sick for whatever reason. You don't want to go through life scared, but you do want to go through it intelligently making decisions. So the opiates, a certain number of people, like 60,000 per year, die of opiate overdose in this country. The minority, the smallest fraction, are actually doing it under physicians' care.
Yeah.
Most of them, well, I got my medicine, and then the wise but factor goes into it. Well, it works okay when I take it orally, but it's so much faster if I do it nasally, and then they die. And that's a real problem.
And of course, synthetic fentanyl has now become a real problem.
If you want that really, really strong weed, that's a good chance that it's going to be laced with something like fentanyl, and people are dying. Okay, and that's a shame. It's a misery. But it's predictable.
I think
it's
Mark
nothing,
Twain said
nothing
it
new.
best. Mark, buy your ticket, you made your choice.
Yeah. That's the way these things operate. So everything we do has its risks, its rewards. Everything has its ups, its downs,
Sure.
its positive, its negative, its yin and its yang. So it goes, actually.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and let's grab a question. Let's see what we've got today.
Actually, let's get Scott in here.
Enough of me rambling on about my philosophy of life.
All right. Hey, Scott, how you doing? Welcome to the show.
Doing fine. How are you?
I'm good. All right, go ahead and tell Dr. Klein what your question is.
My question is, he mentioned body pain, complete body pain.
Sure.
And he mentioned the possibility of pharmaceutical toxicity.
Oh, absolutely.
And I was wondering if statins could be a major factor if you're on statins.
Well, if this were a bingo game, you'd be the first one with a card in the air going, bingo, bingo, bingo. Yeah,
You win.
a statin is a brilliant example of
Hold
how
your
that
cards,
works.
Scott.
Okay, so what happens with statin use is it deprives the body of something called coenzyme Q10, which in turn can cause damage to muscle and nerve. And that, everybody knows about that. So if you do this, you have to take CoQ10 with it. What they don't tell you are the other sorts of things that it does by inhibiting your body's production of cholesterol, which, by the way, is not a problem. Too much cholesterol is only a problem if you have vascular inflammation. Then it's a problem. But when you give somebody a statin, it decreases the production of 150 other adrenal hormones. Then you have issues. Mental issues like, dementia is a really good one. Addison's disease, another really good one. Hypogonadism, great one. Your aldosterone can drop. All kinds of things can happen because, wouldn't you know it, cholesterol is the first chemical prior to the manufacture of something called pregnenolone, which is an adrenal hormone that is also known lovingly as the memory hormone. So you've spot on hit it. So what else can you do besides correct a number without fixing the underlying problem? Why did cholesterol go up to begin with?
Yeah.
It's rare that you actually have somebody that's genetically so predisposed. It's rare that you have somebody that will suck down so much red meat that they end up with a super high cholesterol. More times than not, the real issue is the liver. When you have a liver issue, cholesterol goes up. You can have liver issues caused by thyroid issues. You can have liver issues caused by too little cortisol. You can have liver issues from neoplasm, parasites, and all kinds of crazy stuff. But you look to the liver to fix the cholesterol. And if you don't do that, you'll be taking a medication that's going to make you sicker and sicker. And Scott, thank you for that. That was perfect.
We got a text here. It says, hi, Dr. Klein. I heard COVID-19 vaccine can destroy your immune system. What's your take on that?
Well, I've gotten 3 shots. My wife has gotten
guess
3.
that means
The
no.
answer is no. No, the shot itself doesn't do that. What the shot does is it induces a particular cell type called a phagocyte to produce a protein that the body doesn't like. The body then develops antibodies to that, and then wouldn't you know it, when you do get hit with the virus, which I have also been so blessed with, then it takes care of it. So no, it doesn't destroy the immune system. Otherwise, we'd have
Jared.
about
Hold on.
300 million dead people right now, which we don't have.
Got Jared on the line.
Hi there.
Hi, Jared.
Hey, Jared.
Great. Hi. I'm from Cocoa Beach. I've had a heat stroke, and I also had COVID. Had a really hard time with it
All right.
for quite a while. Anyway, I love working out. I've worked out pretty much my whole life. But I've noticed I'm 64, and I've lost a lot of muscle, and it's hard to – it's kind of more – it's not as tight as it used to be. It's kind of – I wonder what I can do for that.
Okay, there are a couple things about your history. Now, one of the fun things about doing radio medicine, okay, is that people get focused. They know what's wrong. They know the answer to the question.
yeah.
So when you mentioned the heat stroke, so what you did is it's a lot like having a concussion. It's brain damage. Now, that can cause problems in the hypothalamus, which can then cause problems in the pituitary gland. These can manifest as secreting too little cortisol. So what you need to get your doctor to do is to do what's called an ACTH level. It's adrenocorticotropin hormone, but ACTH is good enough for most purposes. Cortisol level, and let's find out whether or not that's contributing to your lack of feeling it. By the way, the testosterone lack that you probably have also causes these issues. These are just the sorts of things that we deal with at stages of life, because I think I'm running out of time.
You are. I can't believe it. Hey,
Did fly, didn't
for nighttime restless legs, lots of water, or
Just take magnesium.
Yeah.
That's chelated magnesium. That's magnesium glycinate, taurate, or malate. You want to take 400 to 600 milligrams milligrams at bedtime with a good healthy slug of water.
There you go. All right. Dr. Klein is available. StagesOfLifeMedicalInstitute.com. Say goodbye.
Goodbye, and thank you guys very much for listening in.
Stages of Life Radio with Dr. David Klein. Check out stagesoflifemedicalinstitute.com or stop by 1917 Booth Circle in Longwood near the intersection of I-4 and 434. Call 407-679-3337. That's 407-679-3337. Dr. Klein accepts many insurances and Medicare too. Join us next Sunday at 4 p.m. on News Radio WFLA Orlando.